What's up guys, Jeff from Sorta Healthy here. In today's video, we'll be talking about why you get paid so little as a personal trainer. There are a few reasons why personal trainers don't make that much money, and if you understand those reasons, it will allow you to position yourself better in the industry, come out ahead, and ultimately make more money. Now, when it comes to personal trainers and how much money they make, there are a few different types of trainers to keep in mind. Trainers can be self-employed, or they can work for someone else, usually in a commercial gym setting. Trainers can also work with clients in a one-on-one or in a group setting. In this video, we'll be covering why all trainers don't make that much money, regardless of what type of training they're doing. In particular, we'll be focusing on trainers who work for some other company and do mostly one-on-one training. These trainers get screwed the most on pay, and there are reasons why. Anyways, before we start breaking all this trainer pay stuff down, all I ask is that you consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. That support really helps this channel to grow, and it's what allows me to keep making free content for all of you. Thank you so much for that support, everyone. I really do appreciate it. Before we get started, do you feel like you're paid a fair wage as a personal trainer? Whether you said yes or no to that question, let me know why you feel that way down below in the comments. I always like hearing what you guys think too. So we're gonna start things off by jumping into what I think is the most interesting part of the video right off the bat. Why do trainers who work in typical commercial gyms make so little? There are some obvious answers to this question, but there is one answer that will be a much bigger surprise to most of you watching. As far as the obvious reasons go, commercial gyms typically don't pay that much because, one, they're often hiring less experienced trainers. Obviously, to some extent, the more experienced you are, the more income you can demand. Two, most commercial gyms see training as a side source of income at best. Personal training is usually an afterthought in a typical commercial gym. Most gyms make far more money from memberships, and sometimes they even make more cash selling shakes or supplements than they do from personal training. Since training isn't the main source of income, well, even if the trainers quit, who cares? They're not doing much for our bottom line anyways. Those are definitely not my thoughts, by the way, but they're common enough when management is talking about revenue in typical gym settings. On that note, this is usually much more the case in low and moderate income areas. In higher income areas, gyms can charge more for personal training. This makes personal training a higher priority to gyms in those more affluent areas. Third reason why trainers make so little is because the overhead on employees is considerably higher than you'd think. This is a big one, and almost no one in the training space fully understands it. Let's break this down, but first I should let you know that I got the idea to make this video after having a meeting with my accountant. I'll be using my business as an example in the upcoming part of this video. I'm not sharing details about my studio to brag or to get sympathy from anyone. In some ways we're doing great, and in other ways we're only doing okay. Overall, I'm very happy with where we are. I'm only using my business as an example because it will help you understand how and why trainers get paid what they do. Anyways, for those who don't know, I run a fitness studio where all we do is one-on-one and very small group personal training. We currently have 5 trainers, soon to be 6, and around 70 clients. Despite the success we've had, looking at my business bank account can be depressing sometimes. Often there's just as much money flowing out as there is coming in. Upon noticing this cash flow conundrum, I decided to set up a meeting with my accountant. We both acknowledged that the business was doing pretty well, but my question to him was, how do we do even better? After looking over my business bank account for the last few years, we came to the conclusion that I really wasn't spending too much money on what people typically think of as expenses. My business's rent is low, utilities aren't too high, and we're generally pretty smart with our other purchases. My biggest expenses were pretty much all related to my employees, which isn't really a bad thing, it's just a thing. When you employ someone in the US, it ends up being pretty expensive for a number of different reasons. An employer has to pay half of their employees' Social Security and Medicare taxes. This is a 7.65% tax on employees' wages that employers have to pay. Then you have other things like workman's comp, unemployment, and liability insurance. If you work for someone else, they'll be paying into all of that for you, the employee. Then you have things like 401k plans. My business has one, and I give all of my trainers a match on their retirement contributions. You also have the extra cost of having more trainers in the facility. Every trainer employed means an increase in the cost of scheduling software and slight increases in every other type of overhead as well. More trainers means more wear and tear on the equipment, more cups used for water, more electricity, more everything. What all of this ends up meaning is that if you're charging $70 for a session, 20 to 40% of that $70 is going towards overhead. 20% if you're doing everything really well, and much higher if you're not. Because you're expected to spend around that much on overhead, as an employer, when you're offering a service, an accountant's advice will be to pay your employees 33 to 50% of the cost of the service you're selling. I pay my employees almost exactly 50% of the services they provide. This is good because my trainers are generally happy, and if they're happy, I'm happy. This means less employee turnover for me and happier clients overall, but also oftentimes I don't make as much money. If a few big expenses need to be addressed at once, or if we lose a bunch of clients for whatever reason, I feel it more than the gym only paying their trainers 33% of training sessions. So why should all of this matter to you? Well, basically it lets you know if you're getting screwed over or not. If a gym is paying you around 50% or more of the session cost, you're not getting screwed. That's pretty much all they can afford to pay you and still make a bit of a profit. If you're an employee and you're getting 33% or less of the total session cost and you're good at your job, you're underpaid, simple as that. None of this applies if you're an independent contractor, by the way. At that point, you should be making over 50% of every session, simply because there's no one else paying for much of your overhead. So in essence, overhead, mostly in the form of taxes, but also greed, are the main reasons why trainers don't make that much money in commercial gyms. At least now you can determine whether or not your employer is doing the right thing. Again, if you're getting 33% or less of the session cost, that's not great. What about all the self-employed trainers though? Why don't they make that much money? Well, if you're self-employed and you're not making that much money, you're the problem. Most trainers undercharge for their services, and unfortunately, I've been guilty of that at a few points in my career too. More on that soon. Anyways, the barrier to entry in personal training is low, meaning it's easy to get into the field. And because of that, we'll never be able to charge as much as a plastic surgeon or someone very specialized. That said, we still offer a valuable service. Very few people are able or willing to be consistent when it comes to maintaining a healthy lifestyle. In fact, I bet most of you watching don't personally know more than a very small handful of people who consistently eat healthy and exercise. People have a consistency and accountability problem, and your knowledge and skills can really do a ton to help improve that situation. Never forget, we're in the life-changing business. And when we're doing our best work, we can have a huge impact on someone's quality of life. So what does all of that mean? It means don't be scared to charge a fair rate for your services. So how do you determine how much you should actually charge? Well, I'm not a huge fan of only relying on the reverse engineering or working backwards approach. There's a few different versions of this, but basically what I'm referring to is figuring out what you want your yearly salary to be. Let's say you want to make $75,000 a year. After that, you'll be determining how many weeks you want to work. Let's say we'll be working 49 out of 52 weeks, giving us 3 weeks off. So then we divide the 75,000, the amount of money that we want to make in a year, by 49, the number of weeks that we'll be working, and that would mean we'd be making a little over $1,500 a week. Let's say we want to be doing 25 sessions in an average week. So we divide that 1,530, our weekly pay, by 25, and we'd get 61.20. So if you charge $61.20 for a session and then did 25 of those a week and worked 49 weeks in a year, you'd make about $75,000. Now you'd probably want to charge a bit more than that due to taxes and overhead, but you get the idea. Although I think you should do these calculations and they should factor into your overall pricing, they don't give you the full picture. You really should be looking into what your local competitors are offering and what they're charging, and you should be looking into how much disposable income there is in your local area. You certainly don't want to be much lower price-wise than your competition. Do not make the mistake of being the cheap option around. If you're going into business for yourself, there's a good chance that you're going to want to price your services somewhere around here initially. If you're trying to be very competitive price-wise, go somewhere around here. If you're not trying to be competitive with your pricing and you feel confident to sell high-priced training, go more towards here. You can always lower your prices later if needed. When I started my business, my pricing was here, and part of me has regretted that decision ever since. I wanted to be competitive coming in and get booked up fast, and that certainly did happen. However, I'm pretty confident that we offer the best training in the area, and we don't charge as much as some of our competitors. Now, since starting my business, I have raised my prices little by little, and I will continue to do that going forward, but I won't lie, I wish when I opened my studio we started here instead of here. It certainly would make everything easier if we'd done that originally. So again, my advice to you is to not underestimate your value and don't be scared to charge a decent amount for your services. If I catch any of you guys pricing your services here, I'm gonna come to your place of work and make you do some goofy NASM balance exercises or something. By the way guys, I have videos that go into more detail on pricing, so if you're trying to figure out what to charge your clients, make sure you check those videos out. I'm sure many of you have noticed that we didn't talk about sales in this video. If you're a trainer and you can't sell yourself or your services for whatever reason, then yeah, that will result in you not getting paid well, or maybe not even at all in some cases. I think we all know that already though, and it's only one of the many reasons why trainers don't make as much money as they should. Anyways, hopefully all of that helps all of you understand why personal trainers get paid so little. And hopefully a bunch of you watching can use that information to figure out if you're getting paid a fair wage for your services. Do any of you have any questions about trainer pay? If you do, make sure to let me know down below in the comments. And if you haven't done so already, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, because both of those things really do help the channel to grow, and that does allow me to create more free content for all of you. Thanks for watching everyone, and until next time, stay sorta healthy.